Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It's October 30th, approximately 11 o'clock at night, and we're reaching out to you because of a troubling trend that we have been seeing in approved major media, as well as comments on social media. It's been very disturbing, and it's about the 2024 election and what may happen in the next 6 days. Now, before we get started on this very important issue, we do want to mention that if this is the first time you're seeing our channel, we welcome you. We thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out across the entire world, everywhere that the internet will allow, to be able to hear your voice, because we believe in the First Amendment. It is a powerful tool of freedom, and it's not just for Americans, it's for everyone. So even if your government does not like it or agree, whether or not the internet overlords like it, we want you to express your First Amendment rights, your freedom of speech with us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I've been seeing a very interesting trend in the news media in the last several days. You've probably noticed it yourself. There's more and more of the mainstream major news media have been coming out, and they've been saying that, well, they've been seeing polling data and they've been looking at the mail-in ballots, and they think that Kamala Harris is winning and that she may be winning by a landslide based on the numbers that they have been receiving. In fact, I've also gotten comments from individuals. As an example, this comes from a comment on one of my videos recently, where this individual said, I'm very concerned. I'm very worried. I'm seeing all these links, all this social media. I'm being told that Donald Trump is losing in the battleground states, that the data that they're getting, the mail-in votes, they're all saying that Donald Trump is losing. And I'm afraid he's going to lose the election. Mind you, this individual isn't someone who likes Donald Trump, but they do believe that Donald Trump is the best choice. They think that Kamala Harris is a detriment to America. So this is not a MAGA Trump supporter per se. This is a person who believes that of the candidates that are available, Donald Trump is the best, and they would want to see him win. This situation isn't that uncommon. We're seeing that with a lot of people. They're very disappointed in the Democratic Party because they didn't get a chance to vote for Kamala Harris as an option for who they wanted for president. Their choices were Marianne Williamson and Joe Biden. RFK Jr. might have been an option, except the Democratic Party kicked him out, and so he went independent. So for those who were Democrat, hardcore Democrat, and did not want to switch party lines, they were stuck with Marianne Williamson or Joe Biden. They picked Joe Biden overwhelmingly, and then Joe Biden was forced out of the race by Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, according to the leaks that they themselves put out, saying that if Joe Biden didn't get out over the summer, they were going to embarrass him and force him out. And thus we got Kamala Harris, who was anointed by the same DNC leadership, again, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, among others, that installed her as the de facto nominee even before the DNC convention in Chicago, and then she was approved by electronic vote by the representatives before any of the delegates could make a case for any other candidate. And so there is a backlash amongst Democrats about being denied their democratic voice in the election process. And that has carried over. And then there are many other individuals who are more left-leaning that have gone the third-party route. As an example, there is Michigan. Many of the Dearborn, Michigan Democrats who are very upset with the handling of the Hamas-Israel conflict. They're upset about that. They're very pro-Hamas, and so they wanted to see either Kamala Harris and or Joe Biden to do more for Hamas, the terrorist organization. And to force their will they withheld votes in the primary, the Democrat primary, over 100,000 votes. They withheld them and voted uncommitted to send a message to Joe Biden. And Joe Biden did respond. He built a pier for Hamas, cost $400 million to build, and then God knows how many additional hundreds of millions to repair in the 2 months that it was functional. That being said, so there is a big schism within the Democratic Party. And while that has been apparent, and we've seen that Kamala Harris in recent polling, as we have shown, has been dipping down, as we can see in recent polls, especially from Real Clear Politics, looking at the average of all polls that have been done and looking at the totals, we see that Donald Trump is leading slightly, but the trend has been that Donald Trump has been leading more often in more polls, no matter where those polls come from. In addition, if we look at the overall trend over time, especially if we look at, instead of the 6 months, if we go into the 30 days, we can see that Donald Trump has been steadily moving up while Kamala Harris has been steadily moving down. It's kind of hard to see because it's not a lot of movement, yet it has been happening. Now, when we look at this data and we see that there is this trend, a lot of people expected to see that the battleground states, which had gone along with this trend and all indicated that Donald Trump would win in every single swing state recently, it is now in the last day or so started to trend, well, in Michigan and Wisconsin, we're starting to see a slight trend towards Democrats. Now, this has been a concern for some individuals. As I said, and as you saw, individuals have contacted us saying, well, we're seeing reports from places like NBC, ABC, all across social media saying that, Kamala Harris is winning. And I have to stop everyone who hears that, and I want to remind you, nobody knows that. The news media is guessing. In the largest and most clear manner, they're making a guess. They don't know that because none of the votes have been counted. So they have no idea how people have voted. Again, many Democrats, like in Dearborn, Michigan, they aren't voting for Kamala Harris. They're upset with her. They've been moving towards Jill Stein. We've been seeing that in poll after poll. And Jill Stein very likely will take a very strong third place win in Michigan because of those voters. It's very similar. We're seeing a similar trend in Wisconsin. To a lesser extent, also the same thing in Minnesota. So why are people so concerned then? How can NBC, ABC, all the major news media, and so many social media posts say that Kamala Harris is winning? Well, let me try and make it clear. They're guessing based on who votes by mail-in ballot. We've seen that many states have had mail-in ballots, and those numbers are a little bit larger than what we have initially seen in other elections. And so they're going by the fact that Democrats tend to vote by mail-in ballot more than anyone else. Republicans show up in person. Democrats will often use mail-in ballots. Because of that trend and that reality, when they're reporting that they're seeing more Democrats vote, well, that's to be expected. And they're being somewhat disingenuous because everyone is aware of that. Everyone who does political commentary, every political analyst, even many of the news media that follow elections, they know Democrats will mail in more ballots and Republicans will show up in person more often. So that kind of changes everything when you suddenly realize that. And I know some will dispute my numbers about that and say, well, Mike, how could you possibly know that? Well, let's look at the data itself. What you see right now is, this is from Gallup. This was in October 7th of 2020. And looking at their data, what they were showing is who tends to vote by mail-in ballot. Now, 2020 was an exceptional year. Absolutely. Because of the lockdowns, more people were voting by mail than had ever voted by mail previously. That's very true. But what we do see, even in 2020, the trend is Democrats were going to vote by mail more and Republicans less so. As you can see, this is true in 2020, 2016, 2012, 2008, and 2004. Now, it is true that every year we are seeing an increase in the number of people who are voting by mail-in ballots, and that exploded in 2020. But even in that year, with the difficulties that we saw then, Republicans showed up in person more than Democrats did. Looking at more data. This is looking at data coming from MIT in their new report, How We Voted in 2022, published on May 23rd of 2023. What they will tell us is that 46% of Democrats compared to 27% of Republicans reported voting by mail. That is a huge difference. That's enormous. And this is from 2022. So the numbers were down, and yes, they were slightly higher than 2016 in most cases, but they were down significantly versus what we saw in 2020. Many people went back to their old patterns, where Republicans were voting in person and Democrats continued to vote more so by mail. Looking at data from NPR, this is from July 3rd of 2023, where they mentioned that mail-in voting is still pretty popular even without the pressure of the pandemic. Now, in this article, they do highlight, in 2020, the most common method of casting a ballot was by mail because of the lockdowns, not because people were overwhelmingly using that process. About 43% voted in that way for that election. Now, the important thing here is the review, 31.9% of voters cast a ballot in 22 did so by mail. That's down, again, yet another source, indicating that fewer people were mailing in their ballots. And that's compared to 25.6 of those who did so in 2018. So even in off-election years, we see the same consistent trend. But this tends to be partisan. Looking at a report coming from the APNORC.org. This is their partisan views of the electoral system, where they state just 44% are highly confident that their votes in 2024 presidential election will be counted accurately. Only 44, less than 50% of the public, including only 22% of Republicans, but 71% of Democrats. Democrats are worried about voter suppression that doesn't exist, while Republicans are worried about voter fraud. And we've seen many articles in recent weeks about ballot boxes being set on fire, threats by Democrats against Republican Election Commission officials. We've seen illegal aliens have been caught in Colorado voting early with stolen identities. We've seen a lot of issues over the last 2 months. So that's why Republicans are concerned. But looking at the data and looking specifically about the mail-in voting, what we see here is confidence in voting methods is also partisan. Now, if we look at paper ballots that are mailed in, so mail-in votes, we see that 52% of Democrats are confident in using that process. We also see that only 13% of Republicans are confident in that method. This is also part of the reason why we see more Democrats using mail-in votes than Republicans are, because they don't trust it. They don't have confidence. Now, for those who are independent, third party, in the middle, which is the majority of Americans, only 30% believe they have confidence in mail-in voting. Again, this is why we see less independents and less Republicans voting by mail than Democrats. That kind of brings us to what we're seeing now from, as an example, NBC News, What weeks of early voting data tell us about how Democrat and Republicans are turning out in 2024? Well, we don't know how people are turning out because Republicans show up the day of the election, not beforehand. They don't go and do the mail-in voting. So we're not getting accurate data. And they're making a supposition that is beneficial to Democrats because they know Democrats mail-in votes, as we have seen. And of the data that they want to present to try and prove their point, they're looking at Virginia as an example for the entire country, which isn't exactly correct. That's not an accurate representation of the middle of America, not hardly. But they're using Virginia, a blue state, and they're saying that, okay, there were, and looking at the data now, this is important. These are the mail-in ballots, and you'll see 70% of cities and counties that lean more Democrat, strongly Democrat, 70% of individuals used mail-in ballots. Those that lean Democrat, 66.9% used mail-in ballots. In the middle, the independents, 64%. Those that lean Republican, those cities and counties that lean Republican, 59%. Strongly Republican, 49.7%. This is in 2020. This is during the lockdowns where many people were, they were motivated and encouraged to not leave their homes, to not interact with other people, to not be on lines, even in grocery stores, and of course, obviously not to wait online to go and vote. So even in that environment where people are disencouraged to be able to vote in person, we still see that even in that environment, the majority of Republicans, or very close to the majority of Republicans, were actually not willing to use mail-in ballots. That's in the worst case scenario. So what do I draw from all this data? Well, the reports that are saying, Kamala Harris is winning because mail-in ballots and early voting is coming from areas that tend to be more Democratic is unfair and missing context. Of course it is. And it should be. In fact, we would be surprised if it didn't. We'd be shocked if you weren't seeing more Democrat or Democrat votes, more registered Democrats coming in. Now, mind you, again, we don't know that those Democrats are voting for Kamala Harris, as in the case of Dearborn, Michigan, and many areas where people are upset with the Biden-Harris administration about what's happening with Israel and their support of Hamas. Well, they may not be voting for Kamala Harris, even though they voted early. And many of these Democrats have been switching over towards Donald Trump, either because they support MAHA, which is the Make America Healthy Again movement by Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., or just because they support RFK Jr. and RFK Jr. supports Donald Trump. He's part of the Trump team. So we do have a large number, or a sizable number, of Democrats who have switched over, and either because of RFK or because of the issues, have been voting for Donald Trump, as well as those who look at the efficiency of the Biden-Harris administration in terms of economics, in terms of inflation, in terms of jobs, in terms of crime, in terms of immigration, as well as the international politics. And they say, the Democrats aren't doing well enough. And they were deceived. They were given Joe Biden, that was taken away, and then they were forced to accept Kamala Harris. A lot of people are still very upset about that. So when we look at all of these different factors, what the news media can say with confidence is that they are, again, as per the trend forever, they're getting more mail-in ballots and early ballots from Democratic areas. That's true. And that would mean that Democrats seem to be surging. It's unknown how many Republicans are going to be showing up to vote. Democrats have been pretty consistent. And if they were to all vote straight down the line, vote blue no matter who, then yes, that would indicate Kamala Harris is winning. But that's not the reality that we see in polling. That's not the reality that we've seen in most of the data out there. Kamala Harris is not as well liked as the news media would want you to believe. I know there are some who say, but Mike, why would the news media not tell us the truth? Well, remember, this is the same mainstream news media that didn't tell the American people about Joe Biden. In fact, they laughed at people. They told us we were wrong when we said that Joe Biden is a part-time zombie president, that Joe Biden is not capable of handling the job of the presidency. And then we found out after the debate that Joe Biden only works 5 days a week between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that he's not cognizant at any other time. We found that out after the fact only when we were provided with the evidence of Joe Biden during the debate. It could not be denied any longer. And that's when we got the truth there. This is the same media that told us that the Russia hoax was actually true. They tried to make us believe that. And then after 3 years of investigations, we found out it was a lie. They were the same people who told us that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake. And 2.5 years later, they all admitted that in fact was always true. So we have a media that has consistently hidden facts or misreported facts or outright told untruths to the American people. These are the same people that have then turned around and given softball interviews, CNN, ABC, MSNBC, with Kamala Harris. And we've even seen 60 Minutes destroy their credibility by presenting re-edited material to the public, even though they fully knew well that that was not an answer that Kamala Harris gave. They just edited it to look like that. How can you tell me that that media, a media that will go to those lengths to try and bolster and fortify the 2024 election for Kamala Harris, that when they say that Kamala Harris is winning based on a trend that happens in every single election going back to 2004, I don't trust them as much. Here's the truth. Here's the ultimate reality. Nobody knows who's winning right now. There is no clear answer. And mail-in votes aren't telling us anything. There is no clarity there. The only thing that matters is, do Republicans show up on election day and vote in person? Are Democrats, whether they're doing mail-in ballots or in person, are they voting for Kamala Harris? Are they voting for RFK Jr. or Jill Stein? Or by proxy, therefore voting for Donald Trump? It's unclear. The trend overall, over time, tends to say that Donald Trump is leading. Not by a lot, but he is leading. And he has been leading in every single battleground state and the majority of states across the country. We believe, as we have called it already, that the electoral ballot will be 312 for Donald Trump, 226 for Kamala Harris. We believe that Donald Trump is also going to win the popular vote. Not by a lot, but he doesn't need to win by a lot. He will win the states, he will win the popular vote. And Kamala Harris will lose. We believe that when the mail-in ballots are counted, we will see that many of the Democrats who voted early either voted for a third-party candidate, or they voted for RFK Jr., or they voted for Donald Trump either because of RFK Jr. or just because of Donald Trump himself. And we're going to see that Kamala Harris is going to lose. She's not going to hit 70% of black men voting for her, and that is absolutely critical. If she cannot get at least 70% of black men, if not 80, she will lose the election just by that one group alone. But she's also lost the Muslim vote. She's lost many women's vote. She has problems. The more that she speaks, the more that she loses voters. This is maybe one reason why she's not going on to Joe Rogan to speak for 3 hours, because if she did, she would have an avalanche of defectors leaving her campaign, stopping supporting her. So let me go back to where we started, to my audience and those who are concerned about some of the emails they've been receiving, some of the data they've been receiving. Well, one thing we would suggest, check the source that's sending you this link, that is telling you that all the data is saying that Kamala Harris is winning and Donald Trump is losing. Is it a left-wing source? Is it a credible news agency? Is that news agency basing their statement because of mail-in ballots? Are they telling you that the trend has always been that more Democrats vote by mail-in ballot than Republicans, and therefore there is no clear indication on whether or not Kamala Harris is winning or losing at this point? These are important things to understand. As we see with this one individual, when they checked the source, when they checked who was sending the information and why they would do that, well, we got a very clear answer. In fact, the final thing I want to address is, so why would we get this kind of impression pushed out to the public? Why would the news media want to give a false impression that Kamala Harris is doing better than she might actually be doing? Why are new social media accounts trying to push this message out to the public saying that Kamala Harris is winning when they have no clue whatsoever, and they can't know until we know how many Republicans show up on election day? Well, the answer to that is very simple. Because they don't want you to vote. Because they're trying to discourage any Trump or MAGA voters. Anyone who would vote against Kamala Harris, whether you're voting for Chase Oliver, Dr. Cornel West, Jill Stein, or RFK Jr. directly. If you're voting for Donald Trump, they don't want you to show up. They don't want your vote. They don't want you in person, nor do they want you to mail in or vote early. They want you to stay home. And so they're trying to discourage you. They want you to be defeated and deflated and feel like it doesn't matter. As they often say, your vote doesn't matter, but they know it does. That's why they don't want you to vote. That's why they want you discouraged, why they want you to feel defeated, even though there's no way in the world they have any idea whether or not that's true. They're trying to fortify the 2024 election. They're trying to convince you of an outcome they hope they can make come true. Because without that pressure, without them trying to convince you can't win, they will lose. And they know that. That is what the trend has been saying. That is what most of the polling has been saying consistently. That's what people have been saying consistently when they are asked. So that's the why, and I've explained already the how, and I've shown you the data. Now it's up to you. Now, if you think that Kamala Harris deserves your vote, and hopefully you think that not because she's a woman, not because of the color of her skin, not because of DEI policies or intersectionality. If you believe she's the best candidate, well, then you better go out there and vote. But more importantly, if you believe, like we do, like I do, that Donald Trump is the best candidate in this race because of his policies, because of his track record, because we need a strong leader with serious policies, policies that we know, that are defined, that he has explained to us, that he's gone out to the National Association of Black Journalists. He's gone on MSNBC. He's gone on the major news media, and he's done the interviews in the Lion's Den because he's confident, because he wants you to know what he intends to do. And what he intends to do is America first, to make America great again. I think that's very impressive. I think that's worthwhile. And I think he's the more effective, more efficient candidate in the 2024 election. You may disagree. You may think it's RFK Jr. You may think it's Jill Stein or Chase Oliver or Dr. Cornel West. I advise you, vote for whomever you think is the best person for the reasons that you go out to vote. Characteristics like gender and skin color aren't reasons to vote for or against anyone. That's what I think. And that's the data. Now it's up to you. What do you think? I look forward to seeing your comments and seeing you this Sunday and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
No Soundbites Allowed is a podcast hosted by Michael Vass. The podcast focuses on providing in-depth discussions on various political and social issues. As the title suggests, the aim is to go beyond quick sound bites and explore topics in greater detail. Michael Vass, the host, engages with guests to analyze and discuss current events, policies, and political ideologies. The live stream and videos cover a wide range of subjects, including politics, economics, social issues, and more. By delving into longer, more comprehensive conversations, No Soundbites Allowed aims to provide listeners with a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding contemporary issues. AI is listening. Shouldn't you know what AI knows? Aren't you tired of being treated like a child by major media parrots and want to be respected as an adult? There is nothing to lose and a lot to potentially gain, so check out No Soundbites Allowed on all major social media platforms.